Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги, друзья. Стало доброй традицией. Спасибо организаторам.
Dear friends, thank you to organizers to meet again after the professional holiday. That's why I suggest I should congratulate you all present here on the all gas workers and oilmen. All the best to your families. I would like to tell in my report what happened in our company within Gazprom Neft within the year 2013, how much we have worked and what projects to be realized.
На данном слайде я хотел бы обратить ваше внимание на
I want to draw your attention to investments which are being carried out in Gazprom Neft in Moscow refinery. This relates exceptionally to the Moscow refinery. This is last year investments and this is more than 24 billion rubles. This is compared to the year 2011 and growth is 5 times as much. Private holder of this company worked out the strategy in the year 2010, and this is the effect of what has been developed and invested within this period of time.
В наш завод московский. За 2012-2013
Within the year 2013 and 2012, projects which have been realized at the Moscow plant, refinery plant, that was constructed the isomerization unit. This year it has been completed in Omsk refinery, at Omsk refinery plant. This installation has been erected a bit earlier.
На московском заводе, была проведена реконструкция.
Reconstruction took place at the Moscow plant. These are figures to be distinguished here and in billion rubles. But I should say 2000 is a completely new installation. 80% of technological equipment have been modified and changed, and substituted by some new ones. And to my mind, this is an extremely quick, fast products, new objects, newly created. In Omsk last year, we also completed the construction, hydro purification of fuels, and by Moscow plant since May, technological procedures take place, hydro purification of benzene, and Omsk plant produces Euro 4, Euro 5, and further measures and steps aims at the better conversion rate. About the Moscow plant, our company as a holder faces a lot of constraints. First, capital investments related first to the environmentally friendly atmosphere and requirements to reduce the PDK, that means the concentration of contamination, and that was a colossal work, a scope of activities done, new installation of drainage, of purification, so quite a newly reconstructed and installed units have been created. Also bituminous installation, new bituminous installation, and new devices have been implemented. Here we have some figures, both to close drainage and anti-contamination devices, and to some other types of devices and erections. So for some time no investments at all have been made due to complicated economic situation, but nowadays practically reconstruction of the existing units is completed. Before Gazprom Neft came as a shareholder, and I will dwell on it later. I gave some examples of eight units which have been erected. Of course, it took longer to erect actually them, but we are now at the technological regime, at the technological procedure here. Our plans for the future: hydro purification of engines, engine diesel, engine fuels, also hydrocracking unit in Omsk, also delayed cracking, and new initial erections in some other objects. Well, it's very difficult to enumerate them all, and the total overall volume of investments by the year 2020 is about 300 billion rubles. It's enough. It's a good amount of money, which requires some resources, both human and monetary, but of course we have to attract more and more people here to realize such programs, such ambitious programs. We came to the conclusion as a company that we have to take into account the realization experience at the Moscow refinery plant, and also we have a punch plant, and I didn't give it as an example, but there was a hydrocracking implementation unit, and we achieved the technological regime and achieved all possible technical features. It is considered to be one of the European most successful projects. That's not a major one, but still it is a success. And on the whole, we have some European experience of realization, and we concluded that in some way some approaches must be changed to fulfill projects. Since last year, we created the direction of realization of major projects, and this is a coordinator of such activities both in Omsk and Moscow. Also, we made a decision to use European experience to attract different types of customers and contractors. Turnkey projects is our concern. We also will rely here on the mixed principle on the one hand, but also we will use new approaches and new direction. Then realization could be more successful in this case. In my report, I would also like to speak more maybe on the experience. So this awarding ceremony show that's our passion for some cost producers is doubtful. Somewhere I agree, but somewhere not. To some category and nominations, but subjectively speaking, mostly I agree with nominations and winners. This is the list of suppliers. As far as I could understand, these were 5 first producers, both domestic and foreign. I don't want to just give any offense to anyone, but presentation will show who actually offers what. But I am not I'm not just a single party just opponent or a supporter here, because everyone, both domestic and foreign producers, do have some drawbacks as well. So restrictions and the constraints, technical constraints, I mean, is a key why. A key why, because we have some aspects here. all projects which are being created and erected on the baseline are licensees from the foreign companies. And in such demands, requirements, there are some technical requirements, for example, in terms of capacity of equipment, and such capacity of equipment requires some special approaches. For a Russian company to be a winner here, just in terms of selection in between the domestic and the foreign company, is a tough job. But foreign producers do have some experience already with licenses, and they are advanced enough in such operation. Procurement means three parameters: quality, time, and price. We just tell as a joke and say maybe two are the most priority, but one parameter always fails. The main parameter is time and time requirement. Let's compare foreign and domestic producers. When speaking about the producers, non-residence producers, the main problem is when they work with the Russian institutes. This is the paper circulation problem. This is the end documents and passport preparation. I say directly, and I don't want to blame of anything the foreign producers and suppliers. This is not the case. No case at all. Whatever. When 100% documentation was in order, was absolutely correct. Never 100% correct. Every now and then, a lot of remarks, a lot of comments, a lot of just problems and restrictions and constraints when the object has to be taken for the commissioning. And then such documentation papers must be corrected, and it takes a lot of efforts. You say, okay, foreign production is of better quality. Yes, it is, but all other restrictions do happen. We also have some cases when some faulty parts occur, or maybe the most problematic thing here is calculations. Calculations every now and then fail. They are not precise. They are not just up to the reality. As the institute, we submit some documents, some figures for the design. Finally, we get some documentation which is by the output is not in compliance with the technical requirements in full. And then this is the constant topic which takes the place within the negotiation with the foreign partner, and the partner says, oh, maybe this was not the right selection, maybe that was the wrong original data given or something. Fortunately, such cases are being eliminated by the time, but still 10-20% as a spare time, some space for playing. Well, finally we come to the parameters and to technical requirements to be met, but it all influences the final price. As a rule, the foreign producers have a longer commitment time, so to say. And of course, compared to Russian producers, mentality of the Russian producers has not changed ever. The idea is first you come into a struggle and then you decide what to do. This is the trend, and Within my experience, I have never witnessed, have never evidence when the Russian producer says, sorry, but we are never in time with this order. But what the foreigners often do, they say, sorry, but we can't manage in time. This is the lack of rhythmical order, so to say. And very often go to Europe and see the commitment discipline and can compare some things. But I'm back. Let me back to paper circulation. This term, terms of production. This is a weak point, maybe, but the weakest point is operation with documentation. We are not totally used to work with foreign documentation. Let's take heat exchanger as an example. With the Russian producers, we agree or disagree, come to some settlements, but term just of delivery remains as it is. The foreign producer always gives much space for the time, much more chances to realize, but still. The designers, for example, at Punch Object, we have the producer from Europe and Russian paper circulation agent, but again we were drawn back. So we failed to manage this with the Russian paper circulating agent as well. So we tried to create this direction, and we managed to create the direction. APCM, we tried to realize and to fulfill such projects. We attracted some European companies, American companies involved in such activities. And for the first stage, the equipment bulk is, I'm not happy to say, but this is of foreign origin. A lot of restrictions, a lot of constraints under certain conditions. The licensee, just according to licenses requirements, these goods cannot be produced in Russia, as an example. So such cases show that to speak one language is better, the common language. There should be a common language for all sides involved in the project. And the effect is evident, and degree of agreement of documentation and speed, and so velocity of documentation circulation. So principles are common, and we see what the second stage of such direction will bring. Contracting in the Russian Federation, and we think this is a positive experience. We will try to multiply this experience. We try to multiply the experience of supplying just some foreign countries, and to interact with foreign agents more. Maybe more things about culture production, 5C management, and things you can watch is of course a low culture of production. Technology is low, and when people throw just a cigarette, not in the litter box but in the street, is a sign of intelligence of culture. Unfortunately, the most part of such pictures refer to the Russian producers, not to the foreign ones, but we do have also some constraints with the foreign manufacturers also. We do not want to advertise some drawbacks, to advertise some demerits, but still what do Russian manufacturers have to do to increase the production quality level and to meet in the shortest possible way the demands of the customers. What is inferior of inferior quality must be of better quality. For the few last years, we attracted some experts, some controllers, and in amount of equipment which must had to be redesigned or something like that, or substituted. So this amount of the bulk of such amount was very big. It takes time, of course. First, second, these are extra expenditures, and third, this is the claim operation itself. As for the Moscow plant, all equipment which was delivered to the construction sites, about 80-90% was controlled by a lot of experts. This is the culture of production, lack of scheduling, plan scheduling, also no commitment discipline, also just operation not on a regular basis. And what can we say now? Now this is a kind of progression, a kind of improvement. 1,500 units of equipment have been erected, and still, of course, we had to work much to eliminate a lot of things. There are two things. Inspector is not a medicine. He does not do anything. He only gets a report, but he cannot cure anything. But attracting an inspector takes just slows things down. And when this is an inspector with his report of the report of incompliance, it means, well, it is more time, more extra time which is needed. Any inspector brings to an incompliance, he finds some findings, some drawbacks, and of course we can differentiate between the formal and actual findings. And some issues can be solved in a typical Russian way. But what do these experts do? What do these inspectors do? The inspectors behave not in a typically Russian way. If welding operations do not go smoothly, do not go correctly, then this is a ban for such welding operations. And that's what the experts, these controllers do. Of course, it resulted in the delay of the equipment supplies. Nowadays, the volume of procurement for newly erected objects, well, these volumes we divide in two big parts. I mean, I want to compare how much it is for the foreign and for the domestic producers. Some years ago, that was the prevailing situation for the Russian producers. But now, the more complicated equipment it is, I mean, maybe the capacitive equipment, the closer they are in the price to the foreign analogous tools, for example, raw material exchangers, separators, heavy steel bottom devices, and so on and so forth. A lot of countries of the EU, European Union, are in the same category price as a minimum. And the price of such devices in Europe is lower. Well, this is a fact. Then in the Russian Federation, for example, this object in Pancheva showed such discrepancies, and As an example, heat exchange equipment also bears some more risks as for the terms of time of manufacturing. And 2.5 criteria is against the domestic producers by all possible merits. Then maybe it is worth putting questions. Why does it happen? If we speak of a reactor, when we have to change or substitute 20 or 30 spare parts by one reactor, then it means that thermotreatment or something is a more consuming operation, and our Russian manufacturer has understanding of it and understand that we need more time. Time requirements are strict, and then it all brings the increase of prices. I have visited a lot of plants and have negotiations with a lot of my colleagues. And what happens now? For example, operators as welders, qualified welders with metal, with bimetals, and such Russian school of welders, is lost. But I'm inspired by companies which work seriously with institutes and create some grants for school and give some scholarships for specialists, for young specialists, to motivate them. But of course, it takes time again. And giving just a favor to Europe, they managed to save such staff, such highly qualified operators there.
Но когда я понимаю, сколько я плачу за изделие и сколько получает рабочий на заводе, иногда
now about incentives in disproportions, just discrepancies at the company. I'm speaking about the lack of margin. I'm speaking about how to eliminate the low incentives at Russian companies. Well, it is a tough question. It's a very difficult issue to deal with that. This is lack of additional motivation, additional incentives. Let's call it a super target, a super aim. We don't have still understanding that people working on vacation or working just in his free time is not paid, and when it is not paid, you will never ask a worker to operate free of charge. So this is lack of motivation again. And then more ideas about the more qualitative goods to cooperate, to interact with foreign companies is a good idea. Hope it all influences both our businesses. Thank you.
Вопрос такой: планируется ли у вас внедрение таких технологий, как станция?
If you implement the technology, such technology as the station of mixture of benzene, I am a supplier. I'm not a technician, and everything is planned. This development program is being published, and I announced the figures already. You spoke about NAFTA platforms. If you plan to increase their capacities, about 20-30 major projects. Omsk refinery is fulfilling the project of bituminous platforms and special devices for that. So expansion of works takes place. We all just research railway and automobile and other aspects here. Thank you.
Во-первых, спасибо большое за сопоставление преимуществ.
Thank you for the correlation, for advantages and disadvantages in between the foreign and domestic manufacturers. My question is about machine import, for example. Bought some years ago, all equipment and also offshore projects have been equipped by the drilling installations, and such installations have been produced in Russia. What is the oil processing and oil refinery? Why is it characterized by a very big import part? Why is it influenced by such amount of import? First, to attract contractors, EPC, EPCM. It means that you agree on vendor list. You have some technology warranties which do exist and do not expire when you need. Here we have to confess. On the one hand, they do give some priority to their producers.
Когда там работает, тоже там немножко любят погрешить. Но это нормально, да, с точки зрения это бизнеса, не нужно на это, наверное, обижаться и реагировать.
We don't have to take any offense here, but we have to take into account some things and details when making a decision. And as an example, some producer says, okay, we will submit to you some deliveries, some equipment, but that was a tough job to get such supplies here to Russia. And partially, let's take the compressors of a special pressure.
Вопрос, коллега. Вот первое, второе место у них. Они, к сожалению, не российские производители.
You saw such compressors producers. They are not of domestic origin. And about centrifugal pumps, I doubt greatly that Yana's people, Yana's plant, oil refinery people are not satisfied with it. I think we have to think if just this is the question mark. If I can have a heat exchanger either in Russia or abroad at the same amount of money. This is the answer. This is the same when you ask what car do you drive, if it is a Russian car or a foreign one. One more question. Do you think it is a good idea if the oil producing companies buy a part of some company, and if it is worth buying some part of the production for the refinery, the creation of the so-called the direction maybe the direction of major projects is a step forward. What is a company?
Как бы не назвать никакого бы названия. Ну вот хорошо. В прошлом году из одной очень уважаемой проектной организации в течение...
One project organization, project institute, design institute, I don't call the name, so that was about 160 people fined. They left the company. So staff leakage, people are leaking, people are leaving the company.
Остались только те, кто подносит боеприпасы, но они никому уже не нужны. Соответственно, для нас это бизнес не очень профильный, он требующий...
And production, equipment production is not that easy.
Ну, скажем так, те базовые основы, которые мы для себя понимаем, которые можно реализовывать.
We think that this is the task of the design institutions. This is not the profile business. The next step maybe is when you have the institute. Why don't we? The next step is why don't I have the more globalized approach? I don't think this is the way. Some colleagues, want to acquire some institutions. I think this is the non-profile business.
Надо тягаться с кем? С Фостер-Виллером, там, например, вот коллеги.
You can't have it all at once and all in once.